guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing a review on the Morphe 35O palette for you guys. This palette is raved about literally everywhere, so I figured I'd test it out for you guys and let you guys know if this palette is the real deal. If you guys want to see how this palette holds up, just keep watching. So I'm going to focus on three main points. The first point is pigmentation. As you guys know, pigmentation is a huge part of a palette. That's where I want to start off today. Overall, I found that this palette contains a decent amount of color payoff. Obviously, some colors may vary, as most palettes do, and there are some that I found had poor pigmentation. I'll make sure to swatch all of these colors for you guys with my fingers on my arms. And something I just wanted to mention is that usually finger swatches appear more pigmented than they really are. So just keep that in mind while you're watching the swatches. The next thing I wanted to focus on was the staying power of the palette. Honestly, the staying power is not great in most of the colors, but some of them did work better and above average than the rest of them. I found that if I used my e.l.f. eyelid primer, the shadows stay on a little bit better. So using a good primer is definitely a good idea with this palette. In general, you should use primers anyway, but I did test this out without a primer and I found that 5 hours was when it started fading. So once I used my eyeshadow base from Essence that you guys know I love, which I'm running out of as well, I noticed that the colors stayed on a little bit longer. The last point I wanted to touch on was the colors themselves in the palette. One thing I noticed was that some of the colors were very similar. I honestly wish that they would have kept one of the colors that were similar to others instead of having them all thrown in. I also wish they would have put some added colors into this palette. Obviously colors that would go with the palette, not just random ones. Overall, this palette is about a 4 out of 5 stars for me personally. I feel like the palette is really hyped up without there being a great quality behind it. But the colors are beautiful and that is the main reason why I'm giving it a 4 stars out of 5. I think this palette is great for everyday wear or to go out on fancy dates and stuff like that. But again, remember to use a primer or an eyeshadow base. A huge plus with this palette that also helped it push up to the higher end was the fact that you can use this palette for a lot of looks. It's not just nighttime, it's not just everyday, it's everything in between those categories. So those are the main reasons why this palette was a 4 instead of 3 stars. So this is the Morphe 35O palette. I'm just holding it here for you guys so you guys can see the packaging. It has a nice little clasp here and it holds all the eyeshadows in here and does have a plastic cover here. So what I'm gonna do with this palette is swatch the first top row and then go downward. So I'll be doing this light shade first all the way to this orangey shade, and then I'll work my way down to the next row, next. These are really powdery, so expect a lot of fallout with these shadows. The first 2 shades in this swatch definitely are some of the colors that do need building up on my eyes. With this row, this one has really good pigmentation. This row, I love all of the colors in here because they're warm browns and darker browns and they're amazing. The lift shades were actually pretty okay. I think that the colors that mainly did not do very well in this palette were mattes. They didn't have great pigmentation. Overall, I don't think this palette is bad. It's a pretty decent palette. I think that if you're an everyday girl looking to just buy a new palette and you don't want to break the bank, this is a very affordable option because of the sort of warm browns that you could use for work, for school, for literally everything. So yes, this is a palette that you might want to get. Also, the Morphe 35W palette, I showed you guys that in one of my recent videos. So this palette cost me, I believe, $23 without shipping, which means each pan size, each eyeshadow color comes out, that was weird, not Canadian. Each shadow comes out to be about 65 cents. Can't really beat the price. This is a pretty cheap palette, so I guess your expectations going into this palette, buying them, should not be up here. Overall, I do recommend this palette. I don't think it's a crap product, but I don't think it's a 5 out of 5 holy grail. Oh my jeez, you need to pick up this palette right now. So if you guys like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye guys.